This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Let's keep it moving here. I want to talk about the pay-per-view, but first I guess we should add a little context. Meltzer would write, the fully loaded pay-per-view will be headlined, easy for me to say, by Rock versus Benoit for the WWF title, Triple H versus Jericho, and Angle versus Undertaker. So they're giving Benoit, Jericho, and Angle each their own highest profile matches on this show. They're putting Benoit with Shane as his manager. I think it's real important the buy rate stays at a competitive level, or else fingers will be pointed at people for not being of the main event caliber. Rock versus Benoit and Triple H versus Jericho should be great matches if they're shorter TV bouts that have already taken place are any indication. I have no idea how Angle is going to be able to get a match out of Undertaker, whether you want to chalk this up to being perceptive, paranoid, or simply that plans change so quickly in wrestling that looking back a few weeks, things not make sense. There's an awareness that Benoit and Jericho are coming off pay-per-views where they were eliminated in the first round and coming off no major wins each, and are now expected to draw a pay-per-view from a main event position. This is an interesting take by Meltzer and pretty observant. Do you agree with the assessment that's going to be tough for Benoit and Jericho to be considered draws after, well, they haven't exactly been positioned strong recently?
Well, I think that the fact that both of them are under 6 feet tall was one of the, as stupid as it sounds, and it was stupid, because, you know, my vision for Benoit and Jericho was entirely different than a lot of guys. You know, I just thought talent always rises to the top, and they both wrestle bigger than they were. And, you know, if I had a territory, certainly to say, if you had a territory, would you hire Jericho and Benoit? God dang, hell yeah, I would. They could both work babyface or heel. They could have good matches with anybody. They were believable. They were snug. Everything that I loved about pro wrestling, they were, but they weren't 6 feet tall. And so their height always played against them. So you got to go above and beyond to be accepted by some in the WWE community at that time. But the good news is, like John Cena wanted to be a star, these guys wanted to be a star at the highest level, and their work ethic and their bell-to-bell performance got them there. So yeah, it was a tough book. They weren't hot going into the pay-per-view, obviously, just like you pointed out. They weren't hot, but I just think that it was a thing where, you know, maybe that was a proving point for some people. Let's see how they do. Let's see how Rock likes working with Benoit. Let's see how, you know, Hunter likes working with Jericho, or whatever it may be. And but quite honestly, you know, not knocking Triple H, because he's a hell of a hand. He's a Hall of Fame guy. He was not a better worker than Jericho at that time. It's just that he was 6'3" or 4, and that's something you couldn't fix that one. It's just got to be proven out that it didn't matter. And at the end of the day, it did not matter.
I skipped over it. I guess I should circle back. The prior week on Raw, Rock is supposed to face Shane in the main event. It goes to a DQ, of course, when Benoit interferes, and he gets Rock in the crossface after a few chair shots, and he's got him there for like 2 minutes while Shane is keeping all the refs at bay. Foley finally comes out and gets Benoit off of the Rock. And then Rock gets up, and Meltzer would say sold way too little considering the circumstances. But either way, Shane now being paired with Benoit, Meltzer thinks is great for Benoit. What do you think?
Well, Chris's only negative thing on Chris's side was his ability to do a sports entertainment promo.
Right.
There's a difference in doing a sports entertainment promo and doing a pro wrestling promo. And for my money, Chris Benoit doing a pro wrestling promo and talking about real issues and the reality of the matches and what he's going to do, what the other guy does, were always fine, absolutely fine. But to be a sports entertainer and do a promo with tongue in cheek sometimes and eyes up, eyebrows up sometimes, was not Chris's forte. He did not have the sizzle for the sports entertainment promo. He had everything you'd want in a pro wrestling promo. But Shane was charismatic, still is. had a galvanizing personality, polarizing, probably better said. So it wasn't a bad move at all. I thought it was a good move. I thought it added a little bit of garnish to Benoit's steak, and to me that was a good opportunity and a smart positioning.
Let's talk about Raw on July 10th. It's another sellout in San Jose, 408 grand at the gate, 13,700 some odd fans. On the show, we would see Jericho beat Road Dogg in 5 minutes and 9 seconds with a lion salt. And Triple H, who's obsessed with Jericho, throws a fit backstage. Triple H shoves Road Dogg down. X-Pac has to step in as Peacemaker. Later in the show, Stephanie comes out and tries to lure Jericho into the ring. This is directly from the Observer. By promising he could take sexual liberties with her in front of almost 14,000 fans. Jericho seemed intrigued by the idea, but it was all a swerve. DX was waiting with sledgehammers and Jericho never came out. And then he did his speech on what Stephanie was. And since it's Monday and not a Thursday, he called her a hoe. And then Road Dogg later in the show pretends to leave because he's mad about Triple H and X-Pac having a match. They wrestle for a few minutes before Jericho comes out to attack Triple H. But what do you know? It was all a trap. They all turn on Jericho. Dogg comes back with a sledgehammer. Stephanie slaps him. Big time attempt at a heat angle with several sledgehammer shots, Jericho coughing up blood and eventually going out in an ambulance with his head covered in the proverbial crimson mask. And then Benoit and Rock ends with Shane attacking Earl and then taking over as referee. Benoit gets the crossface on. Rock puts his hand down, reaching for the ropes, punches the mat twice, and Shane takes it as a tap in just under 5 minutes. Hebner gets up, reverses Shane's decision, and then gets up to deliver a rock bottom to another ref. But this is really selling the hell out of Benoit's crossface as a real threat. So I do think that, with the criticism from Meltzer that, hey, these guys aren't exactly, been built as really strong opponents for Rock and Triple H, man, they're doing a lot here to build some heat and tell a story for both Benoit and Jericho. Are they not?
Yeah, it shows the Rock's professionalism, Conrad. Rock's 6'5", in that neighborhood. Benoit 5'10", or that neighborhood. So where a lot of guys said, how do I sell for a little guy like that? The Rock was so much ahead of the game in that regard because he knew he could get great matches with Benoit. And Rock was about having great matches and stealing the show and being the guy in the match, and being the guy that everybody talked about when the show went off the air. So I always appreciated Rock's spirit and his character for that, because a lot of guys might not have been so gracious and so unselfish when working with Benoit, which I don't understand. And I'm sure some people are listening and said, well, I don't get that, JR. How could that be? Well, it could be. It could be. He's 5'10", maybe. And that was the whole issue there. I've made this point many times, that, the look includes your height, because nobody looked any better, than Benoit. He looked like he bodybuilder body, athletic body, whatever you want to say, looked great, but he wasn't tall. And that always, unfortunately, was his, but on the other hand, it motivated him. It motivated Eddie Guerrero, who was even shorter. So, here you got Eddie Guerrero having a great run with Brock Lesnar. It looked like a huge mismatch. But I remember the match they had in the Cow Palace was, I didn't call that match. Michael Cole did. It was a joy to watch, and how Eddie compensated for his size. And Benoit did that every single night. And Rock, being a student of the game and a third generation talent, was well aware that it's all about who you're dancing with, as to how the damn dance is going to be judged and turn out. So I always appreciated that about Rock, and he was generous to Chris, and that was, to me, was a hell of a good thing to do.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.